Hello, my name is Dr. Ioannis Savas Pantelidis. I am Director of Doctoral Studies at the Doctoral College of the University of Brighton. But the things I'm going to talk about today are all Ioannis. I'm not representing the Doctoral College or University of Brighton in my thoughts here. I'm going to talk about the 10 deadly sins to avoid before you start a PhD or as you're about to embark on your PhD. These are totally my own experiences, and this is my list. Others might have other lists, and there might be some points that I might miss. But for me, these are the priorities and the top in the order as I thought of them and in the order of importance that they come into my mind. The list is created from years of experience of being asked similar questions again and again, not just from my own potential PhD students, but also from other PhD students who are thinking of doing and embarking on a PhD adventure. So number one is doing a PhD because of powerful others, not because of you. So I say this to everyone that if you want to start a PhD, it's gotta be the number one reason has to come from you. And powerful others might work. I'm not saying this is, there's never, impossible is nothing, as I say, but you have to think as a full-time student, it'll be minimum of 3 years, as a part-time 6 to 7 years, where you're doing something, but if you're doing it because of what your mother said, what your father said, what your partner wants, maybe you saw a friend getting a PhD or your brother or sister has a PhD, these are not reasons for doing a PhD. The reason has to be internal, and the passion has to be coming from you. Otherwise, your chance of not completing is so much greater. So that's for me is the number one. It has to come from you. You are going to be leading this. You are going to be completing this. Number two, not having an area that you are passionate about. What that does is an area that you're passionate about researching. What that does to me, in my mind, is allows for others to dictate what you should be researching. Now, don't get me wrong, there are funded projects out there that, by definition, they dictate what you should research. But even then, when you choose to go for a funded project, don't go because you just want to have a PhD and this just, happens to be a funded project. You have to have some love, some passion for the subject area at the very least, or even the context of where the area is taking place. In the social sciences, might be also in STEM subjects. It might be in some industry specific, and you might have love or even worked in that industry and you understand it. So very, very important. Do not, even with a funded project, your director of studies or your supervisor will expect you to carry through and be the leader of your own project. And that's what they're looking through the interviewing stage, by the way. Don't go there and say, oh, whatever you say, what will you do? Whatever you say, what methods, whatever you think. Most likely they will stipulate some idea of the methods. And generally they'd say if they want quants or quals, and you have to come there in that interview knowing your stuff, so prepare. But you still have to have an opinion. You still have to have an idea where you want to go. Your supervisory team and your director of studies, depending on what university you work there, called different things. In my university, you've got the lead supervisor and you've got one or other co-supervisors, okay? And they all work as a team. It doesn't mean because somebody's the lead, is basically the person who looks after the student more direct and does all the paperwork, if you like. So where are we? That was number two. So we're number three. Number three, I've got in my notes here, not researching a good university with good admin and supervisory teams. What do I mean by that? A lot of people get stuck with rankings. Now, rankings do involve some research element, but you have to remember most of the rankings you see out there consider the undergraduate experience. So don't be a fool thinking that that is a clear representation of what is happening at PhD level. So what are the things I advise to look for is evidence of supervision teams that are good, that they've shown good completion rates. So you can look at, just for the university, you can put the university name and put completion rates, and you might get some data or some idea of how good or how bad they've been doing. Especially if they're doing really bad, they'll be in the news at some year. And there's been universities who've been in the news for bad completion rates. The supervision team, how good the supervision team is, I've got a point further down that will help you. But the admin team, and if you have a doctoral college, like we're lucky enough, not every place has a doctoral college, we're lucky enough to have an organized unit that really looks after the students. You can get more information about that. So look out for places that do have doctoral colleges, because they also get, they're better, more successful, not better, more successful in securing funding for the students as well. I'm not going to go into technical details in this, but that's a good indicator. The other thing about this point is that the admin colleagues should not be underestimated in your thinking about, oh, I'm going to go to that university, the supervision team is good. You will find, as I found out when I was doing my PhD, and hopefully you will appreciate how important your relationship with the admin colleagues is, because they are gatekeepers. The admin colleagues I've got used to know, both in my university, the university where I did my PhD, have been amazing, at helping me out, problem solvers. And the least problems you have throughout your PhD journey, the better for you. So don't forget to cultivate those relationships, to respond to emails that may come from them. And don't ignore them thinking, oh, my supervisor is king or queen and everybody else I shouldn't be communicating with. That is a mistake. That is a sin. And it was the third sin, I think. Number 4, not researching the university processes. I get the same questions when I go to fairs. I get questions about scholarships. I get questions about the application process, and I feel almost like a what shall I call it? An upgraded butler, if you like, a research butler, where okay, I understand my university better and it's easier for me to research, but you have the tools. When you want to do a PhD, I'm assuming you've got a master's degree, or in some cases, a super good first class undergraduate. In some cases, you could go for a PhD with a really, really strong PhD and possibly management profile, depending on the area. In my area, that is possible. So don't go to your supervisor asking things that exist or your potential supervisor, sorry, with items or knowledge that already is readily available, because the first thing they're going to start thinking is this person doesn't know how to research, even at master's level. So do I really want to supervise them? So research the university processes and as much information as you can find out about the PhD before your application, and certainly before your interview. Okay, and we'll come to the next scene after that. 5, that's a good one. 5, I've got this one: being charmed by the reputation of some grand professor. And professors are great, and we've got some really good guys and ladies, but you get the professor who you never see, and especially the bigger the name, Nobel Award winner, might be a great supervisor. I don't know. I've never worked with the Nobel Award winner, so I'm sorry for any Nobel Award winners out there. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the kind of professor that they think they're it and they know everything, and the world is their kingdom, or at least the research world is their kingdom, and no one else knows better. So you rarely see them, and they rely on maybe the co-supervisor or the third supervisor in some cases. So be careful. They exist out there. Do not be charmed just by the reputation of a great professor. Do your research. Find out if you can figure out if they've researched. They normally in the profile they'll have some other somebody who completed a PhD, and then you can see, is there a relationship? Have they published papers together? These are small little indicators where they can sort of tell you whether the relationship continues post PhD. A good mentor-mentee relationship. That's how I see it with my students. Should continue. Okay, some students might decide that they don't want to continue, but out of 10 students that somebody has completed, surely at least 7. You can, social media is so easy to research these days. You can see whether there is a good link, whether they still talk to each other. Anyway, you get my drift about that one. Do your research on that one. Number 6, number 6 is not planning finance. And I see this quite often with the questions I get about finance and scholarships and funded projects. That's all fine. But what if you want to self-finance? Have you really thought about all the possible expenses that might come down the road? And what I find is students reach a point in their research, in their project, and they get stuck because they can't pay either the fees, or there might be some expensive kit that you need to buy and continue your project. So plan the finance very well and think about other expenses that are not PhD related, but because of the PhD, for example, you might have to move from one country to the other or from one city to the other to study for a PhD. Number 7 is not treating the PhD as a full-time job. Now you'll say, oh, but Yanis, I'm a part-time student. It's easy for me to explain that for the full-time students, a PhD is a full-time job, and you shouldn't be putting less than the hours you'd be putting in a full-time job, 40, 45 hours, and treating it as such. But even for the part-time PhDs, because you're already probably working with a full-time job, then the PhD feels and is another full-time job, not another part-time job, but another full-time job. If you want to do what I preach, not what I did, because I treated it as just a part-time PhD and I had a full-time job, and I would do 3 steps forward and 2 steps backwards. And then it took me longer than I could to finish the thesis. And you don't want that. I do not wish that to my worst enemy. You want to finish it, complete it as soon as you can. Because there are other exciting opportunities out there. You've got books to write and journal papers to write, presenting conferences, and your life will be fantastic once you finish it. Even the milk will taste better, as it is in my case. Number 8 is not using the interview and the early interactions with the potential supervisor as early warning signs. Positive warnings or negative warnings. If you send an email to somebody and they don't respond or they take too long, there might be a reason. We've got families, we're humans after all, but just if there is a pattern there, recognize the pattern early. And it might not be that supervisor is not the best one for you. It might be that they have too many students to supervise and you slip the net. They might even like your project, but they're over, and a lot of academics these days, we've got so much work that 7 days a week isn't enough. Okay. In fact, we create extra days. Some of us, I think most of us, kind of burn the candle from both sides, trying to do our teaching and learning, our CPD, our writing bids, writing journal papers, you name it. It's like we're split in so many parts, especially now that we have so many key performance indicators we have to keep on looking at. That was 8, I think. Number 9 is a good one. It happens not very often in my case, but I've heard colleagues. I've had a case or 2, maybe not, where the student passes the interview stage and if they feel that was a great success for them, and then they sit on it. They procrastinate like crazy. Because they think, especially with part-timers, that might happen. Your job is very demanding and things happen at your work, and things always happen with life. But you think, oh, I've got 6 years. And then 20 years later, if your university regulations permit that, I don't think there are any universities left that would have such crazy regulations. But which is another sign. If they exist, then don't go there. But please don't procrastinate. Don't see that, oh, great, now I don't have to worry. No, you do have to worry. Most universities also will have systems to help you with what you have to submit and when. And there are staged approaches where you have interactions. But in some cases, you might slip the net. So it's up to you to keep on pushing. That was number 9, wasn't it? So number 10, and my final one for today, is not networking with research teams and taking advantage of all the extras. And that's a terrible, terrible shame, really, because the reason why you go to a university to study for a PhD is the expertise of the, not just your supervisory team, but everything else that happens in that research community. So try to integrate with that research community, network with them, go to seminars. So even, especially for part-time students, it's so easy to forget that there's so many great things you could be doing and learning that will enhance your whole experience, and you as a researcher and you as a thinker. So those were the 10. Think of them, reflect on them. They are my 10. Others might have other lists and a different priority. The priority near the end can change, but I think the top 7 things, very important that you don't do, okay? And I hope that in one of those I talked about how you use your interview to also be another indicator of whether, it's like a job interview, right? When you go for a job interview, it's not just them interviewing you, it's also you getting the gut feeling and understanding whether this is an organization you want to work for. Well, did I say PhD is like a full-time job? Yes, I did. Therefore, the interview should be treated in the same way. Get as much information as you can. Ask questions. Every good university will allow you, and every good chair of an interview will allow you to ask any questions at the end. They'll say, do you have any questions? And I hope you're not going to say no. Make up questions even if you don't have them. But in all seriousness, I hope you do have questions, because you want to find out more and you want to find things about culture of the organization, perhaps that is not written in black and white on the website and the materials that you read and the prospectuses that they might have. I think that's it. If you do well by those 10, you will be doing well by yourself, and you're not going to be wasting your money and your time and energy and other feelings, feelings of guilt. When you do a PhD, you feel guilty when you don't study for your PhD. When you study for your PhD, you feel guilty because you don't spend time with your family. You can have these guilt trips. But if you've done the right things at the beginning, and if you treat it as a full-time job, then you have no guilt. You've done a good job at the PhD, then you can look after your family and so forth. Okay, I'll stop talking now. Good luck in your search for a PhD. I hope I helped, even if a little bit. Ciao. I'm back already. Yanis, you lied. No, what I want to add some bonus feature, and that's something that is not really a sin in my mind, because I don't think, I don't think anybody would be fool enough to do this, but actually I see people doing it. And that is the machine gun approach. The machine gun approach is when you fill in applications one after the other, and you haven't talked to any potential supervisor, and you hope that you'll be called for an interview, and then you hope that Mother Luck will do her bit and you get a place. If your project is like amazing, really good, and you're lucky enough to get a couple of members of staff of the university you applied to show interest, then it can happen. It's, and it's not that rare to happen. But it's not the best approach. It's a silly approach. You don't want to have a half-baked proposal going into universities, shooting CVs and proposals left and right, and hoping that one of them will invite you in. Don't do that to yourself. Be structured in your approach. It's not even a sin, that one. I'm really disappointed when I see people doing it, and I'm thinking, come on, you can't research you chose a university. If you can't research to find out who could be a great supervisor for you in that university where the research aligned with yours, and you're letting yourself in the elements, you are actually committing the sin. Which sin was it? Yeah, number 2, I think. What I was talking about, others, you're allowing others to dictate things about your PhD. Because what will happen is that even with luck, you will get 2 people you don't know nothing about. You haven't researched, you haven't talked to them. So don't do that. Do your research. And that's the bonus feature. I'll stop there for real this time. Look after yourselves, stay positive, work hard, follow your dreams, and don't do anything I wouldn't do. Ciao.